All right, hello. Happy Friday, and welcome back to another episode of the SDR Hotline, hosted by me, sponsored by Sales Hacker. I have a super special guest this week, Shelton Banks. What's up,
Oh,
Shelton?
what's up? And that 30-second countdown, I was like, oh man, this is
It's
gonna be
real. It's happening.
real. Yeah, happening.
What's going on, Shelton? How's your day going?
It's going good. Busy morning for me. I feel like I've had a very productive week. I had 14 things on my list to check off this week, and 13 out of 14, one more thing to go. So I'm feeling good.
You're doing, I'm over here like, oh man, I could start creating checklists, but I feel like I get overwhelmed. But I have like my 2 or 3 things a day where I'm like, if I get this done, everybody wins. So like, let me get that. Awesome. Well, hey Shelton, I know you. I'm still getting to know you, of course, but for folks who might not be aware of who you are, I would love if you could start off with an introduction. Just let us know your name, where you're calling from, what you do.
Yeah, so I am Shelton Banks calling from the windy city of Chicago, Chi-Town, Southsider, Sox fan. And I am currently the CEO of an organization called Rework Training. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization focused on helping people of color, people that look like me, Black, Brown, Indigenous people, get into the tech sales game and get that first role as a BDR SDR.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah.
Hey, I met you, not say recently, but within the last 6 or 7 months or so, something like that. I feel like whether or not you want to claim it, I feel like we've developed a friendship that I'm super appreciative of. Yes. And let's see what else. But I would love to maybe just learn a little bit more of like how you even got into sales. Like, how did you find yourself here before you became a CEO? Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, my journey. So I didn't think who does think they're going into sales? Like many, I didn't think I was going into sales. So I'm a high school dropout, didn't go to college. And as you can imagine, kind of like and I didn't like drop out of high school because I didn't want to finish, but like had family issues growing up, had to take care of my mom when I was 16. And so I'm like, man, I got to get a job, got to pay some bills. And at 16, the only types of jobs that will hire a 16-year-old with no high school diploma at the time were the jobs that you found on Craigslist. And I'm like, I need money. And so the only jobs that would say like, you want to make money were sales type jobs. And so, man, I applied for one of them. And the one I applied for happened to be vector marketing, Cutco knives. I did that while actually doing construction at the same time. So I actually thought I was going to go into like working with my hands to be an apprentice. I was an apprentice for a carpenter, and I did Cutco knives and carpentry for 2 years. So between 16 to 18 until I got my GED. And I'm not sure anybody out there has ever worked with their hands, did carpentry. It's hard work. It's like really, really hard work. And during the wintertime, it's really, really cold winters of going back and forth to Home Depot, carrying drywall. Like, it's brutal. And I thought that was going to be my life until I applied, saw a help wanted sign in a window of a bank that was being built. And the guy I was with said, he was like, oh, we can help work on this bank. And I was like, no, I want to work for this bank. Like, forget, I don't want to, I'm tired of working on my hands. I want to work for this bank. End up interviewing at the bank. The manager was like, dude, you have no experience at being a bank teller. And I was like, look, you got to refer people credit cards and checking accounts. I'm like, that's what I saw in the job description. I'm like, I know I don't have this experience that you're looking for as far as being a teller and counting money and all the stuff but I'm like, I know how to talk to people. I can convince people to open checking accounts and get credit cards. He was like, okay, dude, and get a job. And I mean, the rest was history. I mean, no, it wasn't. Like, it was brutal. Rolled up probably like 14 times my first year as a teller from just like not knowing what professionalism in the banking industry looked like. But I held up on my end of the deal of getting people to open a lot of checking accounts, a lot of savings accounts, a lot of credit cards. And so while getting rolled up, I also got promoted. So I went from a part-time teller to a full-time teller to a banker. And within 3 years, I became a branch manager at JP Morgan Chase. So I got my investment licenses, became a branch manager, no college degree, with a GED, and was booming. Then I got fired, and I'm like, all right, well, where am I gonna go next? And tech found me. Well, we found each other, and started as an SDR, BDR actually at Groupon.
What's up? I was gonna say,
Yeah.
hey Christina. Hey Christina. I have not worked at Life of a Teller, and I didn't know that backstory whatsoever, Shelton. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that today. Yeah, over here claiming you as friend. I don't even know who you are, but no, I think that's there's probably so many places that we can go, just like knowing that background, that story. I would be curious, like what do you think enabled you to be able to kind of step into these places and having had no experience, like maybe not having that kind of traditional background that people are looking for, and still be able to like persuade or convince folks to go like, hey, like I'm gonna take a shot on you. And the reason I ask is like I would imagine there's plenty of folks, especially right now with everyone, just like with last year, the pandemic, things kind of shuffling up a lot of things for different folks. People are making career transitions. And I know one of the big things that I hear from folks is like, oh, I don't have the experience. I don't meet all the requirements. And therefore they kind of opt themselves out. But I'd be curious to hear from you, like, what do you think helps you to be able to step into those spaces and claim them?
Yeah, I think it's probably confidence. I mean, I think I say it back then. What it sounded like in my mind, my thing was like, it's not a matter of if I'll succeed. It's a matter of where I'll succeed. Was kind of like my thing. Like, look, just somebody just give me an opportunity. You know, a level of pride too. So I mean, like, you know, high school dropout. You could imagine, you know, how I felt about it, because I didn't want to drop out of high school to start working. And so I had friends, didn't want my friends to know that I dropped out. Some of them were going off to college, some of them weren't. And I'm like, I got to keep up. You know, I don't want to be that guy. You know, I grew up 100 south side of Chicago in the hood, as most people will call it. And so, you know, I see guys in their late 40s going to the liquor store every day and just bumming. And I'm like, I'm not about to be that. And it's not that I was like, I think that I'm better than those folks, but as Roderick would say, I thought that I was bigger than those folks. So I thought bigger, right? I'm like, I want more than this. Like, I don't want the same routine. I want more than this. And that drive, man, of wanting more than my circumstances, just, it's like somebody's going to give me a shot. Somebody's going to give me a shot, and I'm going to make something of it when I get it.
Oh my gosh. I'm over here taking notes. I never, like, this is going to be recorded. I can go back and listen to it, but there's so many goodies that you just shared. Even if I think about the journey that I took of like, all right, I went from, I was like babysitting and nannying and au pairing, like in Paris, didn't even have the right to work when I was there, to coming back to the US. And it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not going to go back to nannying. Like, there's something bigger than my situation right now. And there was a very similar mentality of like, I just have to accept the fact that I'm going to be successful at some point in time. I just got to figure out like, I just need to find that person who's like, hey, listen, you're right. And I'm going to give you the space to do it. So I love that. So, okay. So you kind of transition out from working at JP Morgan,
yep,
to getting into tech sales. Can you walk me through, like, how did you even know, like, why tech specifically?
Google, like everything else. I mean, Google, like my transition after. So like I jumped, not many people know this about me either. So after I left banking, dude, I went through just like this spiral of like, oh my God, what, you know, you get fired from somewhere, you're almost, you're kind of broken just a little bit. It's like a shot at your confidence, especially for mine. Like it was like I was climbing, I was going up at this exponential rate. And then for it to just stop, it just took a shot at my confidence. And I was applying for other places, trying to use the experience that I had. And people were like shooting me down. Like they were like, and I mean, they were shooting me down just because like I get into a branch manager level, like that interview at branch manager level looks completely different than part-time teller level, right? Like that whole give me a shot bit didn't work anymore. And I didn't know that, like, you know, I didn't know the skill set that I had gained. So really, I just wasn't, you know, able to articulate it that well. The despite the fact that I had the experience and despite the fact that I was doing well, my mindset was still 18-year-old Shelton mindset of like, we about to figure this out, you know. And, you know, the business world doesn't operate like that. I can't go in saying like, I'm looking for a shot, like, help me out. Like, at that level, they're like, do you know it or don't you? Right.
Yeah.
And so, man, because of it, I end up at Nordstrom. So I worked as a stylist at Nordstrom's for a year just to, like, man, make ends meet. And I'm like, man, I back in retail. I'm in retail. And then I did a very specific Google search. So it was top 50 jobs in Chicago for an 80s baby to work for.
That's specific.
Look, my life has been made up of specific Google searches. And the technology industry came up. Groupon actually came up. And it's like, all right, I'm going to apply for this role. And I applied for a management position at Groupon. And walked in and they were like, nope, you got no experience. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I work with people. I've managed a branch before, millions and millions of dollars. I understand profit and loss reports. I understand how to manage people. I managed a team of 20 people and had direct reports and all these. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And it was funny because at the time, I think I was 23, 24, and the person that was telling me this was like 19. And I'm like, all right, bro. Like, so I'm like, come on, I want to work here. And I hit him with the, like, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be good. And so he said, well, we have this BDR position. And if you want to take that, well, you know, I think you'll make a good BDR.
Yeah.
And I was like, can I see the comp plan? And he was like, yeah. He was like, you know, this is how we make money. That was what he said.
Yeah.
To me. This is how we make money, right? And I looked and was like, I can do this. I'm like, I can do this, and I can crush this. Like, I can destroy this. And he's like, yeah, you know, it's an unlimited comp plan. I'm like, say no more. I'm like, sign me up. I'll be a BDR. You're gonna regret this.
And what happened? Did they regret it?
They 100% regretted it. So get at Groupon, so I go through the training program and everything like that they're talking about is making sense. I'm like, man, I did this before. I'm like, I trained people on how to sell like this before. Like, I get this. So I go through the training. It was brutal. Like, any salesperson knows, like, sitting through training is like, with sales enablement folks, no shots to the sales enablement folks, but I'm like, I'm ready to get into it. Put me on the phone. And so get through training. They finally put me on the phone. First week, 2 people closed deals and I didn't. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, end of the first week. And the people that closed deals, no shots to them. I'm like, I was annoyed. I was like, how did they close deals? Like, this is super easy. I know what I'm doing. How did they close deals? And one of the guys talked crap to me at that. He was just like, man, Sheldon, I thought you was like, you know, I thought you knew what you was doing. Second week, I closed. I mean, on average, like, you know, when you first start a Groupon, on average, you may close like 2 deals a week. I closed 7 deals my second week. Third week, closed 7 more deals. Like, I was just like deal closing machine. So my manager at the time, his name's Marshall Hamilton. He actually wrote a post on me not too long ago that said that, man, love working with Shelton. He broke the comp plan in GOB, but broke the comp plan, like, and made a name for myself. And that was really it, man. I made a name for myself where people were like, this dude actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Sorry, I got a little distracted by one of the comments there. There's something I have to, like, really appreciate real quick, which is there's the, like, coming in, right? There's a few things. Having experience, like, being let go from an organization where you're, like, growing, you're developing, you're committing yourself to the work, right? And you're like, all right, hey, I'm all the way bought in. I'm getting good results. Like, here we go. And then that, like, all right, hey, like that gets chopped off. Definitely been through that experience. And it is such a huge hit to the confidence. I feel like it took me a couple years to recover like some level of like, oh no, like I'm a dignified human being and it was not me. Like, okay, cool. So if there's like one piece of that, stepping into a place like Groupon, not having any experience, and you're like, yeah, screw that. Like, I'm gonna rock out. You're gonna regret this. There's like this level of confidence that I appreciate so much. And I don't, I think there's a difference between like confidence and cockiness. It's like, all right, you can be cocky and like, and have nothing to show for it. While like confidence, there's some level of, the way I associate it is there's some level of like work or reassurance or something that's there. But like, what do you think it is? I'm going to keep on asking these questions, but like, what enables you to like, I'm just wondering is like, have you always been this confident, or is it something that you've had to like work on and develop? I'm really just curious about this piece, especially since a lot of folks that I'm working with or I'm talking to, or it's like I hear imposter syndrome more and more, like almost every conversation that I have. So I'm like, what's the remedy to overcoming imposter syndrome and just like recognizing that you're capable and able?
Yeah. Have I always had this confidence? I'm not like, I don't think it's confidence. I think it's have I always thought this strategically? Yes. Like I've always like, oh, I'm about to strategically think my way, finesse my way out of a situation, right? And so when I approach my career, or just life in general, forget Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Number 2 is starting with the end in mind, right? Like start with the end in mind. And so me saying like I'm gonna be successful, like it's based on my definition of success, right? It's not like anybody else's definition of success. And I know that if I'm starting with I know that any stage that was early on in my career, any job that I went to, it wasn't me going there like this is the end all be all. It was me going there for a very specific reason to get to what I had in mind at the end, right? And the end constantly progressed like further and further. It was like, oh, I got to that end, so let me create a new end. But when I like walked into Groupon to apply, right, or even the teller position, right, the end in mind for me was like, I want to get a job where I get to wear a suit to work every day, right? Because I thought that, growing up, people wear suits to work, and I'm like, I want that job, especially since I don't have a college degree. That would be the end in mind, right? And so I'm like, I just need to get that, right? Whatever I got to do, whatever skills I need to get this job where I feel successful, right? And for me, success, at 16 was wearing a suit to work. So that's what I'm about to do. I'm about to get all this I need to be able to wear a suit to work. Got the job, and I'm like, this guy sitting across the desk from me, he's wearing a suit too, but he's making more money. And I'm like, I can do that. So now the end in mind for me now is like, I want to sit at a desk. I actually want my own office, right? And so I'm about to learn everything I need to learn to get my own office. So I end up getting my own office. And then I was like, oh man, somebody got the picture on it. Like every step of my life has always been like, I want something not that's in the moment, right? When I got the job as a BDR, I'm like, I don't want to be a BDR. I wanted this management position. And the management position said that you need to understand like what it's like to be a BDR and understand sales process, understand learning, certain types of things. And so like, me getting the job as a BDR, the things that I did, it wasn't for the sake of being a BDR. Like failure for me in that sense of like, let's just say if I would have got the job as a BDR and didn't do well, I wouldn't have necessarily cared, because like I was thinking like I just need to get this experience and understanding and speak this language so I can get this job in management or like go work up the ladder. And so starting with the end in mind.
Yeah. I'm just over here taking notes, and I'm thinking through even because if I'm managing a team right now of 10 reps, 10 people who are in the SDR role, I do coaching on the side. I think I have Evan Patterson who's here. So I've done a coaching session with him through SDR Nation, mentor, things like that. And again, like one of the things that I hear, it's like, or at least what I observe, are folks who are thinking about things only in the moment, right? And maybe not taking, there could be a gap, right? There could be an opportunity to kind of settle into one's experience and be able to get a lot more out of it. when we start thinking with the end in mind. So I'm gonna have to tune into like some goal setting exercises or trying to figure things out to get clarity on like, all right, hey, like how do we set these longer term goals? How do we actually create a strategy? How do we shift into this mindset that you're referring to? It's like if that's a remedy or if that's a medicine, it's like if it's as simple as that of like let me stretch my horizons. Like wow. That's a game changer right there.
Yeah. It's like you get to reverse engineer your success, right? So let's just say like, all right, you're in the sales vertical, the sales org. And if the end in mind is that you want to be a CRO of a company one day, the chief revenue officer of a company one day, how do you reverse engineer that? Let me go look at some CROs on LinkedIn and figure out other positions that they held, right? I use Ryan Barreto, sits on the board of Rework, right? He's not a CRO. He's a global vice president of sales at Sprout Social. Before Ryan became the global vice president of sales, he worked 3 jobs in marketing. He worked those 3 jobs in marketing for less than a year. And it's on his LinkedIn. So I'm not, 3 jobs in marketing, each of them for less than a year. He worked at one company less than a year, second company less than a year. After he got done with marketing, he went into a BD role. And he spent a year and a half at that BD role. And then after he left that BD role for a year and a half, he went to Salesforce as an account executive and shot up the Salesforce hierarchy rank, right? And so you got to think like, do you think that the skills that Ryan got from those 3 jobs that he worked from less than a year and that job as a BD, do you think that he liked those jobs? I'm pretty sure he didn't. Pretty sure he hated them. But do you think they taught him something that's helping him to be the leader he is today? 100%. 100%. Whether he liked them, didn't like them, whether he failed at something, whether he struggled, like he learned something.
Yeah.
And starting with the end in mind. That's it, man. Can't stress it enough.
I love this. So much. Again, me and my notes right here. I know we have a couple of questions. So looks like Jarrett had a question specifically, as you mentioned, from like week 1, right? 0 deals closed at Groupon. Week 2, week 3, so on, 7 deals at close. So not even just like, oh, hey, I'm gonna step up my game. I'm gonna do 3x, 4x of what's expected from me. Curious, what, if anything, changed for you during that time?
Yeah. So great question. I think that you go through training, right? If you're a salesperson, you go through training and product knowledge, right? And sales enablement is dumping both product knowledge and sales process into your brain. And you come out of sales enablement with this product knowledge and training, and you almost lose yourself a little bit, right? Like you hop on the phone and you're just like a robot, and you lose the personality that you just lose the personality that got you hired. And that happened to me. I think the first week I was trying to do all the sales process that I had, learned from sales enablement of like, I had to do the role playing, in 1 month, and I just lost myself. And that second week I got on the phone like, I don't give a. I was just kicking it with folks, right? I was like, I went into every phone call like, I want to work for you. I'm like calling folks, decision makers, like I want to work for you. Like that was my mentality. Oops, sorry. I want to work for you. That was my mentality, and I came off like that. Like I would be making calls like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like casual, kicking it. And people were just like, I built relationships. It became less about a sale, more about the relationships. And I was closing deals. People didn't even know what, they knew the product. And they're like, man, I don't even like Groupon, but I like you. So I'm going to go ahead and do this deal. I'm going to go ahead and do this deal. And so it was just like, man, the personality came back and really just being myself in the sales process, right? Like being myself, relationship first. And then, if we make a sale, a genuine relationship.
This is a big piece. Something I want to highlight as well. Like I haven't heard anybody else articulate this outside of like what you've just shared. But I even think of some of the feedback that I've gotten from reps who've come out of onboarding, or like if I coming to Gong in October, there were reps that I inherited on my team who were still in their ramping period. And it's like, we would spend like, I say if we're out of onboarding for 2-3 months, this person isn't ramping up at the same speed that we would have expected them to. And I'm listening in on their calls. I'm asking them how they're feeling about the pitch. And there was this like kind of breakthrough moment where I go, is this how you would talk on a regular basis? Right? Like, is the language that we're teaching you the language that is like native to you specifically? And they're like, no. It's like, okay, well, how would you say this? So these are observations that we're making at Gong. But these are observations that we're making within the SDR team at the very least, and especially for folks who are coming from like what I'll call like the non-normative culture. So anyone who's not like a cisgendered white man or even like or a white woman, right? But it's like, right, hey, like there's a different way of speaking, there's a different way of talking, and that might not be what's traditionally represented, but and also like that is what, like that's a huge part of what got you hired. So like come in and be yourself and like it's like, doing the work required, or at least having that intention in mind of like, all right, hey, I'm enough. My personality is what got me here. It's my personality that's going to get me moving forward, right? It's my ability to work really hard. I don't like, no one should expect for me to now all of a sudden be someone different, because like that's not what's going to be successful. So I was like, you wrote, you were saying that, and I was like, have you been in my Slack conversation? What's going on here?
It works. I'm telling you, like it works. Like you should, if you're on a sales call, you should be taking it. And when I say like you should be going at it, like you're trying to work for the person you're selling to. I truly mean that, because I'm like, if you try to build that relationship and you go at a sales call and really become a partner, right? You're building this relationship, man, you never know who you may work for.
Yeah.
Like this, if you're a BDR right now, like this isn't your last stop. Like this isn't your last company. The odds of you becoming if you're thinking with the end in mind of want to become a CRO one day, you are not going to be a CRO at the current company that you're at as a BDR. Like it's just like there is just odds of it happening. If it happens, man, I'll buy you a bottle and take you out to a steak dinner. Like, but the odds of it happening are very low. So with that being said, you need to sell and build relationships with folks that one day might hire you as their CRO, because you built this great relationship with them while you were selling.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Shelton. And great question. Jarrett, thank you so much for that question. We have another question here from Rodrigo. So how would you handle the confidence part in a job where there's a long-term sales process?
How would you handle the confidence part in a job where there's again, I feel like that's the relationship. What is confidence? How do we like define confidence? Like a person's ability to, like their inner, how would we define confidence? Just out of curiosity. What are you? I Google it real quick.
Yeah, I was like, let me Google this real quick. Definition confidence. I mean, for you, when you think of the word confidence, like what pops up for you?
I don't know, nothing. Like that's the thing. That's the problem. Like I feel like when I think of the word, I'm just like, all right, like you got to be confident. I'm like, all right,
yeah.
Don't be scared.
I can share. I mean, maybe I can share a little bit about like. So I'm reading the definition right now, right? The feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something is that firm trust. So I guess there is this, I think there's this recognition that we can like trust ourselves, right? Or there has to be that belief that's there. That's like one thing that I think about for confidence. Like anytime that I felt incredibly insecure, it's like, and then I had to make a shift, and I was like, okay, like why am I feeling insecure? Like, why am I feeling like triggered or whatever else? Like, why, like what is it that's happening right now that someone might call like, all right, you're experiencing imposter syndrome? And more often than not, it's like, okay, I might not know all the things that I need to know to be masterful at this job. I might not have all the experiences that like this job description requires, but I really do believe and have faith and trust in my ability to figure shit out. Like, and I think that like probably that belief in one's ability to figure shit out is like, that to me could be summarized by like being confident.
Right. And so that's the I guess I'm having a hard time relating to this question just a little bit, because like in a long-term sales process, I'm like, look, whether it's long-term, short-term, transactional, relationship build, like the confidence part is just there regardless, right? And so like if I got a long-term sales process, I think the idea of either way, right? I think that failure, I feel like people relate confidence and often project it like that different circumstances change who they are internally, right? Like if I don't make this sale, then it changes like my inner being of like I'm a failure, right? I'm like, no one circumstance defines who I am. So whether if that it's a tough question. It's a really tough question because I'm like, all right, how do I'm not what the confidence doesn't change whether it's a long term or short term sales process. Like it's that ability to know like I need to get this done. And there will be iterations of this, you know.
Yeah. I think there is I'm just reflecting, like I did the AE role for a short amount of time. Like there was a whole journey in 2016 where the company I've been working for almost a year was an SDR there, top performer, right? Like I didn't break the comp plan, but I definitely made significantly more than my OTE. So like, it's like, all right, cool. Like this is awesome. Did really well, was kind of like in a team lead position. So kind of similar to the experience that you had at the bank. And then they like got, then they divested from the sales development group, right? Letting go of everyone who was there. Myself included. And it's like, okay, like who, like for me, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I had put so much of my self-worth into like being a top performing SDR at this specific company. So I think a big piece is like one of the things that I really had to learn from like that experience, but also like going to another company. And I was so used to like, I have to be the top rep, right? And when I moved into the AE role, I kind of forgot the fact where I'm like, there's a ramp up period. There's experiences that I'm gonna have. Like I'm not gonna be, I might not figure everything out right away. Like my learning curve is going to look different because it's a totally different practice than sales development. And so it's like that first quarter that I was in that seat, the entire time I was so stressed out because I was like, it's like I didn't even know who I was. So like I'm so used to attaching my identity to some end result. So I think there's all types of coaches and leaders and people who write on this of detaching from the outcome and instead focusing on like what is it that you can actually control. So if I'm thinking like a parallel that I can make, like I've never been an AE in a long term sales process, but I can think through like, oh wow, if I want to become, let's say, a director of sales development or a CRO or a CEO, for example, like that might take a while. So I can either say, all right, well, I haven't hit this goal that I have for myself. Like there's something wrong with me, and my confidence, right, or my belief in myself starts to erode. Or I can kind of look at it as, all right, there's this thing that I aspire to realize, and I believe in my ability to get there, and my journey is going to be a story of progress. And like that, like the work that I have to do is always going to be progress from here on out, right? Like I love what you said, like there's no one circumstance that defines me. I'm like, what's happening right this very second is a snapshot. It's static, and I'm a dynamic being. So I think there's like those kind of that's what I was thinking through, like in answering this question. Because for mine, I feel like I haven't actually had that established like trust and belief in myself until the last few years. So I'm like, no, like I've had to work through this stuff quite a bit.
And that's what I think. I think that just the aspect of what you just said, right? And the last thing you said of like you have to work through it, right? Like the confidence part just will naturally come. Like forget I don't even think about confidence. Like, all right, I gotta work through it. Right? Like, and just know, like, keep working through it. Like I'm just gonna keep working through it. Yeah, like
there's a quote that I had come across in the like at least in the past quarter, and it was like any lack of confidence could easily be overcome by a surplus of effort. So like if I tell people, it's like, oh no, like I feel very confident in myself, I say that and I go, and here's why. Like for me, I was like, I do the work required in order to help myself feel that much more confident. So like if I'm not feeling confident in something, like is that because I don't know something? Like maybe it's a matter of like I don't feel fully competent, right? But I have confidence in my ability to learn. Like I've lived enough life and gone through enough things to go, you know what, GB, you like got this. You know, like you like take a moment, you got all the answers, you're totally fine right now. This is a learning moment and you've proven time and time again that you can learn. So I think there is this big piece of like that learning mindset, that growth mindset. Like if you look at what's going on in our lives as this is what it's always going to be, then it's always going to be that. But if we take a moment and recognize that, you know, I have a choice in the matter, then that also means that I can choose to change my situation. I can choose to change my story. And like, and even thinking about what you had shared, Shelton, of like, all right, there was an environment around like that you were in, and you're like, no, like that, I'm not going to be that, right? Like he's like, all right, hey, like we're not a victim of our circumstances. Like we're the ones who possess a choice in the matter.
Yep. 100%. It's funny because when at this stage, right? So I'm in a room with executives often, right? And they're thinking, I feel like there's this shift in the thinking that, you know, that people need to make. And it's funny because like it's a sales tactic. So Sandler, the Sandler book, Sandler training, talks about this technique called okay, not okay. Actually, a couple of sales books talk about it, right? Of like putting yourself in a position to be less okay. You familiar with it? That ring a bell? Like the okay, not okay.
I read like you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a speed. I recalled it, but please explain it to me to refresh.
So it's you hop on the phone and you don't come off super confident. If you're trying to get past a gatekeeper, you say something like, "Hey, I'm not sure who I need to be speaking to. I'm hoping you could point me in the right direction."
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm hoping you can help me out. Like I'm kind of lost here. I'm hoping you can help me out. I'm trying to get, you know, I'm trying to talk about marketing or something. Like who should I talk to? Because I'm lost. Right. And people are more apt to say like, oh, go that way. Let me help you out quicker than if you were to say like, I want to speak to your manager because I'm trying to talk about marketing. Right. It's just like,
oh yeah, this is so different. Oh man. Can we talk? Can we?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was like not planning to talk about this, but like I think because so I was in a clubhouse room a month or so ago, whenever it was, and there was somebody in there we were talking about the gatekeeper specifically, and I remember this person, right? Like I would I'll give the demographics a little bit, but it's like, all right, you have this like probably middle-aged white guy from the East Coast, right? So it's like there's very, very super direct. And he's like, this is how you handle the gatekeeper. When you call him, you go, I need to talk to your manager. Please hand them the phone. And he's like, it works every single time. And I'm like over here, like shaking my head. I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I didn't realize that like the approach that I've like learned to take, or the approach that I've adopted, is it's like, okay, not okay. I was like, it's like, if we kind of assume that more often than not, people want to help, like they are inclined to be helpful, then we can kind of tap into that of like, all right, hey, yeah, I was like, I honestly have no idea what I'm doing here, and I'm really hoping you can help me out. I'm like, more often than not, people are like, sorry you lost puppy, but yeah, sure, like how can I help?
Like, yeah, I help. Like, here, I write a check to get you back on track. Like, I don't even know what you're here for, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you use that mentality in sales, right? But like, why don't you use it at life? Right? I feel like I feel like I've been in the room with plenty of leaders, right, and board meetings, and oftentimes they preface questions and things, and they say like, you know, I'm not sure if I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but like, can you help me understand X? Or like, I'm not sure. Like, it's okay not to be okay. Like, but like, to take it a step further, right? I hear stories, right? You guys, you've heard them too, of people that say like, you know what? Was at this company when I first started my career. I was at company and I got fired. And I worked at this other company. I did relatively well, and the company folded. And then I ended up getting a job somewhere else, and I became the CRO, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I learned a lot. And then actually lost all the money at that company and we went bankrupt. And then I worked at this next company and I actually did a lot better at that next company. But now I'm Elon Musk and none of that stuff matters. like that'd be the life story. And it's just like we all get fascinated, like, oh, Elon Musk and you're rich and you're successful now. But it's like, did you just not hear what this man said? Or like he just lost all this money and like 14 other companies went under because of him. And like failure was a thing, but he learned from it. And now he's Elon Musk. Like that's confidence. Like going in it, like I'm here to learn something. I'm thinking with the end in mind. Like I'm not stopping. I'm gonna be successful. It's not a matter of if is where. And just because something goes wrong, you don't close a deal, doesn't mean that quote changes.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Because I think there's the other Sandler piece of like, there's a difference between your role and your identity. Like your role, it's like this is what you're hired to do. It's a set of tasks and activities. And then there's the person that you are that is separate, right? It's like one, right? The person that you are is always going to be, that's always going to be there, but your role is going to always change. So like, we shouldn't have to like, again, not tethering our identity or defining who we are by like the set of tasks essentially that we've been asked to do or how well we can actually do them.
100%. Don't do it. That's what I'm talking about. Look.
Don't do it. I didn't take this conversation this way, Shelton. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you're liking it. Like I said, and this is what I do every day for people that want to get into tech sales. Like these conversations are the ones that need to be had before a person gets into tech sales.
Yes.
They got to be had.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think where to take this conversation because I realized we have like 16 minutes left. And I think one of the things that we talked about yesterday that you wanted to touch on was some of the work that you're doing at Rework. I think there's for the folks who are wanting to get into tech, but it sounds like there's also work that you're doing with with leaders at tech companies. So I'm trying to think about like where you'd want to take this. We can either focus on, we can do both very quickly. 15 minutes, but what's something big? What's the one thing that you would want to talk about for this?
One thing I want to talk about, man, I feel like it's so many. So I have ADHD too, and so like I got 14 ideas floating through my brain. And I'm like, all right, Sheldon, you got to pick one, right? So we could talk a little bit about sales for the culture. We could talk about like work I'm doing in diversity and inclusion. I like the diversity and inclusion topic. Actually, I like it a lot, right?
That one.
Yeah. So it's interesting that diversity and inclusion is tough. Like it's like tough, and I feel like it doesn't have to be, at least as relates to sales. It doesn't have to be. Like we were in a group together, on a panel together, and I always frequently say like, hey, we both need safe spaces to be ignorant.
Yeah,
safe spaces to be ignorant, and it's like pushing that down sales leaders' throat. It's like starting to work where more sales leaders are starting to appreciate like we do need safe spaces to be ignorant because we don't understand aspects of a personality outside of the workspace, which is why my biggest mantra of the year, mantra of the decade for me is that you can't be diverse and inclusive professionally if you're not diverse and inclusive personally. I feel like I'm rolling with that, right? And I feel like what you just said about when you're in a clubhouse room and this guy, basically middle-aged white guy who basically read the Challenger book or the Challenger sale, was trying to force the Challenger down your throat, like this is how you do it, right? It was like, well, if you read the Challenger book and like based on your life, this is what you got out of how to do it. When I read the Challenger book, that's not what I got out of it because my life wasn't set up like your life was. And so like I got something different style on how to do it. And so like my aim, my mission, my goal has to been like to bridge those gaps of like this is what sales looks like, but then like this is what diversity and inclusion looks like. And now if we put the two together, we'll actually make more money.
Can we rewind just a little bit because you mentioned something where it's like diversity inclusion is tough and it doesn't have to be so tough, especially in sales. what makes it tougher than you think it really needs to be?
Yeah, so I think this feeling, it's almost like I don't, not a neuroscientist. I'm about to say this in theory. I don't know. I'll look it up later.
Listen, nobody's an expert.
All right, perfect. So then I feel like when you mention sales, one side of the brain lights up, right? Like understanding sales, one side of the brain lights up. When you mention diversity and inclusion, I feel like another side of the brain lights up, right? It's almost like you mention sales and you think of like the business brain, like business impact. You mention diversity and inclusion, you think of social impact. And so because it's like sticking a round peg in a square, in a square hole, like people, it gets complicated where they feel like, oh, I need to go do a class. And like, yeah, you do need to learn, right? But it just convoluted of like, yeah, there's data out there and it just becomes so much, right? But imagine if as a sales leader, and this happened to me. This is why, my first BDR manager, when he explained that comp plan to me, it was like, all right, well, I don't really think you got enough experience for this role, but like, this is how you make money here. Here's what making money looks like. You got to sell this. This is how we sell it. This is why we sell it. This is the problem that exists, right? And this is why we exist, because of this problem, like, period. It's like, how would you sell it? He didn't say like, this is how we sell it. He said, how would you sell it?
Ooh.
And immediately my brain went to like, all right, I sold Cutco knives before, and I remember how I sold that. I sold credit cards at a bank before. I remember how I sold that. I remember all the things that made me successful in hustling, right? So if I'm a used car salesman going into tech, I sold used cars before, but I remember how I sold that. I worked at a restaurant before, and I remember how I sold drinks and upsold desserts. I worked at a cell phone kiosk in the mall before, and I remember how I sold that, right? You say that to how would you sell it? And like the person explains to you how they would sell it. Now we put the two together. You're like, man, I understand where you're coming from. Oh, that worked. You did that, and that worked when you were selling cell phones. Like, oh, okay, I understand where you're coming from. This is how we sell it. And so now, how can we, like, why? As a manager, you ask the person like, why did you sell it like that? And you break down like why they did it, and all of a sudden, like you help them appreciate that they're doing a lot more sales process than they thought, and then you plug in the rest. Like it makes it a lot. And now we're working together towards coming go. We're getting to know each other. Right now, it's a lot more. It's like, oh, man, you went door to door selling knives. What did you say to people? And now we kicking it. Now you laugh at me because you're like, yeah, that's a lot more of a human element, and we're working towards this common goal. And it's not like a pity party that you're throwing. We're about to make money.
Yeah.
Because we're in sales.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good, Shelton. Thank you. No, because I'm trying to back it up. Because there's like some things that I might just do. I'm just thinking of reflecting for the conversations that I've had with folks who have managed, where it's like, hey, like let's take a moment, let's pause, right? Especially if folks are coming in from a different environment or a different professional background or practice. And it's like, oh, I have to learn all these things that, like y'all show to be successful. And there's such a huge learning curve. And I'm like, time out, back it up. Like, let's just start off with, you've been successful in the past. Walk me through how you got there. What did you do? What really helped you? So there's two parts of it, right? Which is, okay, like taking that moment to reflect and like recognize, like, okay, I've been successful in the past. What helped me? Like, what were whether it's redeeming qualities or certain lessons that I had to learn or certain things that I tried out, what were the things that helped me overcome the situation or helped me to bridge some kind of like competence gap that's there? And I think there's this other side, and I recognize we only have 8 minutes, so I'm going to have you on here again where we can break this open, where I think we start talking about like leadership specifically and like what is required from leadership, like people in leadership positions to be able to kind of hold space for these different backgrounds that people and experiences that people are having, or that that people have, period. Because if there's not that curiosity into around, oh, hey, how have you been successful in the past? And instead you approach it with, this is the only way you're going to be successful. Like, how are we actually going to grow? Like, how are we actually going to find new ways of getting better? Like, how are we ever going to innovate? So that's just an amazingly important point to surface up of, like, you've been successful in the past, own it, know about it. And the second part is, leaders really being receptive to the different kinds of styles and avenues from which success can be realized.
You just made me take a note, Gab. I'm working on something. I'm working on something big, and what you just said, like 100%. Like I just took a note. Like, I'm gonna use that later. I'll quote you.
Yeah, quote me. Yes. Hey, listen, I got notes. I quote you all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, Shelton. He said you can't be diverse personally or professionally if you're not diverse and inclusive personally. Okay, can't have it that way. All right, awesome. Well, again, I know we have like 7 minutes left. We've covered quite a bit. For the folks who are here, if you have any last questions, feel free to submit those. But if not, Shelton, what are you looking forward to this? Let's say in the next 3 to 4 months.
The next 3 to 4.
What can we tune into that you got a brewing?
Yeah, really, that I can't tell right now. Like it's G5 classified. So like this, I'm big on coaching. Like I'm really big on coaching people, and I've been reading a lot of books, and it's funny because the books are written from the author's point of view based on their life experience, right? And so a lot of the books, not unfortunately, but like the business books that talk about self-development and coaching and business are about white authors. And so like as they explain principles, oftentimes they tell stories from their points of view, that the things that happen in their lives. And I'm like, none of these things would ever happen in my life, but like I can see how the principles apply or would have applied. And so now I'm just reverse engineering like a whole this part that you said of like identifying what makes me successful. I feel like that's what makes up imposter times. Like a person has been successful, but they haven't identified what made them successful. And so I'm brewing up a whole thing to help people out, not only identify what makes them successful, but then actually how to use it in everything. Yeah.
When you launch a coaching practice, hire me. Okay. Let me know what I could be working on now, because I want to be a part of this.
Yeah, I gotta, I like to, I value your opinion, so I'm gonna use it on you first, and if it works, like that worked, I gotta find some folks to trial it with, so that I can get some case study knowledge out. And if
I will 100% be a guinea pig. Yes.
Dope.
Collaborate. I'm here for it.
I think you gotta like it though. I'm excited about it. Guinea pigs in. I said I want 15 before we launch it. That's what y'all have to look forward to.
All right, cool. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I'm looking forward to like being in the initial cohort of the Shelton Banks genius right here. But yeah, Shelton, thank you so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed the conversation. I always enjoy our conversations, but this one was awesome to have. And thanks everyone who was able to make it today, who was like in the chat. See some familiar faces. Amy, Christina, what's up, Kristen? I see you as well. Evan as well. Audrey, what's up? But yeah, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in to yet another episode of the SDR Hotline. Peace.